All right, welcome back to part 2 of the Prepping for Your Check Ride series. My name is Chris, also known as the Midlife Pilot, and I appreciate you being here on the channel for this video. So today's topic is flight planning and preparing your cross-country flight plan for your DPE. He or she will give you a specific airport to plan a flight to. And that involves all areas of the flight plan: weight and balance for the flight, fuel planning, a nav log preparation, plotting on a sectional, the whole 9 yards. So this is going to be a slightly longer than normal video, but let's jump right into it and get started. We're going to use a combination of an actual chart, an actual sectional, current sectional, and also an iPad with ForeFlight, just to make some things easier. All of my POH is stored on my iPad. We'll use it to get the wind and weather data that we'll need for this flight. We'll do that through ForeFlight, and we'll check ourselves. We'll check our work, basically, using ForeFlight as well. So my Check Ride Examiner, my DPE, has requested that I prepare a flight from Clarksburg, West Virginia, CKB, to Ohio University, the Ohio University Airport, KUNI. And so we're going to first plot that out on a sectional chart and take a look at that, and then we'll make a nav log for it. And we'll go through every step of this process one at a time. So first thing, current sectional. You can see the dates printed here. This is effective 18th of June 2020 to the 5th of November. It's a Cincinnati sectional. That's the area that we're in. And our airport of destination is kind of in the northeast corner, let's say. So it helps to open the sectional the right way the first time. This says north is to the right. So when I open this, I'm going to flip it over like this. And this is the north side, and this is the far northeast of the sectional. So I can start to see, there's Garrett County, here's Elkins, so we're getting real close. There's Clarksburg, and there's Ohio University. So for the point of this exercise, we can make this thing a little smaller by kind of folding the top down and folding the bottom up. So we'll try to make this a little bit more manageable for us here on the video by folding the sectional so we don't have to keep fighting with the space here. All right. So you should be able to see here, right here on the sectional. We have Bridgeport, the Clarksburg Airport, CKB, North Central Regional, is over here. And Ohio University is over here. So the very first thing we have to do is get our line scored from point to point. So it's slightly longer than the ruler that I have available. So I'm going to draw this line first. It's kind of cheating, but I'm gonna use my plotter here. To get a straight line from the center to the center, and to start with, I'm just going to make a nice pencil line. Okay. Then we'll cheat and we'll extend it over. We'll stay on the line and just carry it on through to the airport. Like so. All right. So once we have our line drawn, I like to highlight it with a highlighter just because it makes it a little bit easier to see, and I don't mind using the fat highlight way just so that it really stands out. There. So now we can see our line pretty clearly across the sectional. Now, one thing to note For this specific route, I can tell already before we start plotting our course or our checkpoints, he's given me a really easy flight for pilotage. It literally follows Route 50. I mean, this line is dead through Route 50 until Parkersburg. So that'll be a great additional aid to know where we are throughout the course. Okay, so next we need to start looking for waypoints along our way to identify. I'm going to try to keep these, you know, within 15 miles or so of each other. So let's see what we got within like 15 miles of Bridgeport here. Okay, the town of Salem. We'll fly directly over the town of Salem en route. So we'll go ahead and mark that as our first checkpoint. All right, what else do we see? There's really not a lot out through here. We've got some oil and gas wells off our right. I'm not sure those are going to be easily enough to distinguish from the air. A little town of West Union. Let's give it a shot. Just marking these with X's right along our path here. And we move up a little further. We would have the town of, I guess, Harrisville off the left. I don't know that that's going to be distinguishable from the distance we'll be at. Another option is always we could plot a radial off of the Parkersburg VOR here. In fact, we've got one defined already on the map on this Victor Airway. We've got the 121 from radial from Parkersburg. So let's go ahead and use that as a checkpoint. That'll kind of show that we understand that we can use VOR navigation. And then this is going to be a little bit of a stretch from here to here, but let's use Parkersburg Airport off our right wing. That's going to be a little bit of a stretch between the two checkpoints, but that's about 22 miles. And then how about crossing the river? The river is a great checkpoint. It'll be very visible. And I'd like to get one more in there before the field. How about when we cross Route 50 again? There's a big Route 50 here. Okay, and then the airport. So the next thing we want to do is start filling out some of this data here on our nav log. Now, there are several of these available on the internet. This is the one I prefer. It's from dauntlesssoft.com. That's DAUNTLESS-soft.com. I've already filled out some information here on the back, and that includes things like all the frequencies for our origin and destination airport, any frequencies we might need to know that would be helpful for us in our flight, the Clarksburg VOR. We'll add some other frequencies for the VOR, the Parkersburg VOR that we're going to use for navigation, things of that nature. Down below there's a section where we'll be able to copy the ATIS for those airports. But for now, let's go ahead and start working on the front side of our flight plan. So we know we're starting at Clarksburg, so we'll go ahead and put KCKB in the field. And our first waypoint, we said, was the town of Salem. So let's see how far it is from the airport to Salem. And we're going to do this in statute miles. Statute miles, because our airplane is in miles per hour. If your airplane is in knots, it's much easier for you to just stick to nautical miles. But for me, and you'll see why in a bit, it's easier to stick at statute miles. So that is 18 statute miles from the field. So in our distance column here, we'll put in the first leg field is 18 statute miles. All right, our next waypoint that we identified was the town of West Union. So we'll write West Union. And between those two waypoints in statute miles again is 11 statute miles. So we've put that in the leg field. Next we have the town of Pennsboro, but it's actually the 121 radio of the Parkersburg VOR. So we'll go, here's what I like to write here. I like to write JPU 121. So that's the 121 degree from. And then out to the right in the nav aid field, we'll put JPU, and its frequency is 108.6. So let's write JPU 108.6. And the distance that we should expect from West Union to that VOR radio is 9 statute miles. So we'll put 9 statute miles. Okay. Next, this is our long one. This is the Parkersburg Airport off our right. What is its identifier? PKB. So we'll write KPKB. And this is a pretty good haul here. This is about, let's call it 26 statute miles. Next we have the river. We'll cross the river. That's in 14 statute miles from Parkersburg. And last we have Route 50. That's 10 to Route 50. And then finally we have KUNI. And that is, let's call it 19 statute miles. Okay. So next we would just simply take a calculator and add these up. Let's see what our total duration is. We've got 18 plus 11 plus 9 plus 26 plus 14 plus 10 plus 19. I have 107 statute miles between the 2 points. Okay. So the next thing I would do would be, we need to figure out what our true course is going to be on course. And so to do that, you would use your plotter here. And the way you do that is you line up a straight line. It doesn't really matter what straight line you choose to use, but some straight edge of this rule needs to run along your route of flight. So we're just trying to line this thing up here along our flight route. In the meantime, I'm also trying to center the dot in the middle here with a line of longitude. And that looks pretty darn good to me on course. So now that that is on our course, once you have your center of your plotter lined up with a line of longitude, you can then just simply read directly off of this straight edge that you've put in here under this heading indicator here. I'm looking at about 267 degrees true, which makes sense. It's a westward bound flight. That's another good sanity check. So we'll write 267 here in our true course. The other thing we can look for while we're in the chart at this point is an isogonic line. We have to figure out what our magnetic variation is going to be for our heading based on an isogonic line, and that are these dashed magenta lines that run on the chart this way. And I only see in the entirety of this sectional one line, and it's pretty much darn near in the middle of our flight route. And so we follow the line until we see a legend, and it is 8 degrees west. This is the 8 degrees west isogonic line. So west is best, least is east, so we add 8. I'm going to go ahead and fill that in the variation field all the way down, because we know that's going to be the same. For longer flights or flights that span multiple isogonic lines, you certainly could have, that could change by a degree or 2 or however many it is across the length of your flight, so you would want to check for that. But in this case, we're going to use 8 degrees all the way down for the duration of the flight for our magnetic variation. All right, at this point, we have a general idea of the distance of our flight. We have a general idea of each leg, and we also know our magnetic variation. It's time to start thinking about a cruise altitude so that we can then start to figure our wind correction angle for the flight. A couple things to keep in mind when selecting a cruise altitude, a VFR cruise altitude. First of all, this is a westward bound flight. So we know it's going to be an even 1,000 plus 500 in the VFR cruising altitudes. For a westbound flight. The first thing I like to do is just kind of take an overview of the chart, and I look at some of the bigger numbers in each of the quadrants here, just to get a general idea of the safe altitudes. Certainly we're going to want to be above all that, but I'm looking for anything like mountain terrains, ridges that we may have to cross, and out westbound it doesn't look like we have a lot of that to contend with, so we have a lot of options in terms of our altitude. So it looks like 2,200 in this area. I see some obstacles along our course that are, 1,500 feet MSL. But really, we have a pretty good option. So at this point, I would start to want to take a look at winds. Now my check ride is too far away to be thinking about that. So we're going to use some fake numbers for this lesson, and I'll redo this before my check ride. So in ForeFlight, the way I like to do this, and you could say this is cheating, there's a couple ways you could do it. You could go look at winds from some various airports along your route of flight. Like I know Parkersburg, they pull their winds, it's probably Allegheny or from Charleston, whatever region those come from. You could look at your winds. We're just going to use current winds for this example, and say, boy, things really change between 6,000 and 9,000 feet. Look at that from 203, which is going to be in the headwind area. It'll be kind of a headwind from the south, so a quartering headwind from the south at 4 knots at 6,000 feet, clear to 24 knots at 9,000 feet. So we're not going to want to be getting up into the areas above that, at least for the trip out, for headwind's sake. So I'll look at a few of those things, but really the way I like to do it is when I create a flight, which I've already done here in ForeFlight. I've got one started. Let's pick today's date. So we can get current winds that'll be accurate, and our route of flight. And then I like to use the altitude advisor to kind of give you an overview idea. So at 4,500 feet, we'll have a 3-knot headwind. At 6,500 feet, we'll have a 7-knot headwind. That's about 0.6 of a gallon more fuel in about 4 more minutes. So what I would look at, I would say that's an extra 2,000 feet. That's a fairly long trip for me to make at 4,500, but I might do it in this case because we follow Route 50 the whole way, effectively. And we'll have options for landing there. Or I would go up to 65 feet and say it's literally half a gallon of fuel and 4 more minutes for an extra 2,000 feet. So that seems like the safer option. So let's go ahead and choose 6,500 feet as our cruising altitude. So now that we know 6,500 feet, let's take a look at some winds. Let's take a look at what winds are reported here at Clarksburg. So we go to winds. All right, 3,000 feet winds. It's looking like 345 at 2 knots, 6,227 at 8. So we'll go ahead and write those numbers down in our notes section here. We've got CKB winds, we've got 3,000, we've got 345 at 2, and we've got 227 at 8. That's 6,000. And let's go on out along our route of flight. Let's see if Parkersburg has any different indicators for their winds. We don't care about the 3,000 foot winds at Parkersburg because we'll already be at cruise at 6,500. So the 6,000 foot winds at Parkersburg, they're saying just 243 at 1. So this is actually real good. And then just for fun, let's see what the nearest station to Ohio University is reporting for their winds. We do care about their, they're saying 028 at 6 and 210 at 5 at 6,000. All right, great. So now that we have this data, what can we do with it? Well, let's figure out for our first leg of the trip. Our first 18-mile leg will be our climb leg. So we're going to average Clarksburg's winds for 3,000 and 6,000 feet to come up with what we're going to actually use to plot our wind. So I just take 345, which is the 3,000 foot number, and 227, divide those by 2, and I get winds from 286 at 5. If we take 8 plus 2 and average those, that's 10 divided by 2, so that's 5. So 286 at 5 is what we're going to use here for our first wind correction angle calculation for our climb out. Okay, so next we need to figure out our true airspeed for our climb portion for our first leg of the flight. Before we can figure out our wind correction angle, we know how fast we're actually going to be going above the ground. So to do that, we first need to calculate our pressure altitude at Clarksburg. So since we're planning this flight for now, based on this hypothetical, this data that we've got currently, let's take a look at current information for Clarksburg. It's 27 degrees Celsius and 30.06 for the altimeter. So 27 and 30.06. So we use our electronic E6B for this and to calculate our pressure altitude. So our indicated altitude at Clarksburg is 1,200. It's 3006 is the barometric pressure. And what did I say the temperature was? 27. So our pressure altitude is 1,060 feet. So let's figure out our true airspeed. 1,060 feet. The outside temperature, let's kind of average based on the temperatures between 3,000 and 6,000 feet. It's like 20 degrees at 3,000, 14 degrees at 6,000. So let's call it 17 degrees for the climb leg. So we'll say 17 here. Our calibrated airspeed for our climb is going to be 85 miles per hour, which means our true airspeed is 87 miles per hour. Okay. Now we can calculate our ground speed, I guess. Ground speed is what we're going to calculate with our E6B. So first we need to convert miles per hour to knots to do this wind correction angle. So we'll take 87 and put it under the statute column back here and read over here, and we're getting 76 knots. Okay, and we calculated our wind, 286 at 5. Okay, So it says on the back of your E6B here, it says set wind direction under true index. 286 was the wind direction that we decided was the average there. So we spin this wheel around until 286 is under the true index. Then it says mark wind velocity up from center point. Okay, 5 knots was the wind velocity. So I use this little piece of tape with a red dot on it. So I'm just going to come up 5 right in the center and put my little dot right on 5 up from the center. Set true course under true index. Well, 267 is what we found earlier was our true course. Slide wind velocity mark to true airspeed, 76 knots. So we slide our red dot down to 76. And then it says ground speed reads under center, 72 knots. And wind correction is here. It's virtually none. We're going to call it none. So 76 knots and no wind correction angle. So let's go on the back again and convert 76 back, which again is virtually nothing. .87 miles per hour will be our ground speed. So over here in the ground speed column, we can put 87, and we have no wind correction angle here. So 267 is our true heading plus 8 magnetic variation. So it's 275. Our compass, we would look at our compass card for deviation. There's virtually none in this airplane. 275 will be our course heading for that first leg. Then we just kind of work this out the rest of the way, right? So by this point, we will be at our cruise altitude. So we can just use the winds at this point. We'll start with Clarksburg here. We'll be at 6,000. So we'll just go 229 at 9er. We'll go 229 at 9 for the rest of the trip, just for sake of this exercise. 229 at 9. We need to look in our POH now and find our cruise performance for our 6,500 foot altitude. All right, so how do we do that? Well, let's look at our chart. So we've got 2 columns here. We've got a 5,000 foot altitude column and we've got a 7,500. We're kind of in between those. So what we might do is extrapolate something here. Let's look at going at like 2,500 RPM. Our true airspeed will be an average of 124 and 123. So we'll just call it 124, and we're going to burn about 7.7 gallons per hour. 124 and 7.7 gallons per hour. We'll need to know that later. Okay, so now that we know that, it'll be 2,500 RPM. We can go ahead and calculate the rest of our wind correction. So we know that our true course is 267. And our winds, we said, were going to be 229 at 9. So the first thing we do is put 229 under true index, and we mark 9 up from the center. It's very hard. There, mark 9. Then we set our true course of 267 under the true index field. Slide wind velocity mark to true airspeed, which we said was 124. So we slide our little red dot up to 124. Ground speed reads under center. Nope, see, you know what we forgot to do? Convert knots to miles per hour. So let's go on the back. Miles per hour to knots. 124 miles per hour is 100 and... let's call it 108. 108. So now we can slide wind velocity at true airspeed, which is just about there, 108. And it says ground speed reads under center. So it's 102 knots and a wind correction angle of -2 lines over this way. So 102 minus 2. So let's convert 102 knots back to miles per hour. You would skip this step, these conversions, if you were using knots in your airplane. That's about 117 miles per hour and a -2 wind correction angle. So it'll be about 117, and we can put -2 for our wind correction. And remember, we said we were just going to use those winds for the rest of the trip, just for sake of planning here. And we use 117 for the rest of our speed planning. So now we can take 267 minus 2, it's 265, plus 8, which was our magnetic variation from earlier. That's 273, and we'll say no deviation. So 273 will be our course the rest of the way for the trip. Our course heading will be 273. Okay, so good news. So now we know we can do some other basic stuff to fill in here. So we know each of our leg distances. So let's go ahead and calculate how much distance remaining after each leg. So for that, you just take your total distance to the top and subtract each leg from it. So the first one's 107 minus 18. Now we've got 89 miles left. Minus 11, we have 78 miles left. Minus 9, we have 69 miles left. Minus 26, we have 43. Minus 14, we have 29. Minus 10, we have 19. Minus 19, we've arrived. All right. Now we need to figure out some estimated time en route for each waypoint. So we have the data now that we need to do that. We know our distance and we know our speed for each leg. Those are the two things that are ground speed. So we know the two pieces of information for each leg that we would need to calculate our time. I'll show you two ways to do this, one with the manual flight computer and one with the electronic E6B. So let's do the first leg. It's 18 miles, 18 statute miles at 87 miles per hour. For you, it would be whatever nautical miles, if your plane is in knots, at knots, and those two go together, right? Nautical miles and knots, statute miles, miles per hour is what I'm working in. So it's 18 statute miles at 87 miles per hour. So on this manual E6B, it says to set miles per hour above the arrow, okay? So we'll scroll this bad boy around until the black arrow is underneath of 87. And then it says distance is on the outer scale, time is on the inner scale. Well, we know the distance is 18 statute miles. So we come around here to 18, and it's going to take somewhere around 12, let's just call it 12 and a half minutes. By reading this inner scale under 18, between the 12 and the 13, we know that's going to be 12 minutes and 30 seconds of time. So that's how we would do this. We do this for each leg here on the manual flight computer. We can also use an electronic E6B or an E6B app, if you have it, to calculate the time en route. And to do that, let me find leg time. So it wants to know statute miles and miles per hour, which is good because that's what I'm using. So I would put in here my distance for the next leg on the chart is 11 statute miles and my ground speed is 117. It says 5 minutes and 38 seconds. So let's check that with our manual E6B. So we put 117 over the black arrow, and we read our distance on the outer scale of 11 miles. I've got 5 minutes, 5.5, 5:30, yeah, like 5:40. Yeah, 5:38 is what is correct. So we'll go ahead, for sake of rounding here, we'll do 5:40. And then we can just continue to change parameters on this electronic one. We'll go 4:40, Let me just keep filling this out all the way down at this speed. 1320, 711. Let's go 710 for sake of ease. 10 miles. Let's go 510 and 19 miles finally. 945. All right. So now we've got all these times that we can add up to see how long our total trip should take based on these conditions. So 12 and a half plus 540, that's what, 17, that's 1810 plus 440, that's 2250 plus 1320, 2250, 32, 3550, 3610, 4320 plus 510, 4320, 4830, 4830 plus 945. 5730, let's go 5815 is what I have for my expected time en route, 5815. The nice thing about this with ForeFlight, we can check ourselves. This is not going to be exact because it's the winds may be slightly different. Before we finish up though, let's figure out our fuel consumption. So we know we said at 2,500 RPM at 6,500 feet, we were going to use 7.7 gallons per hour. So to calculate fuel flow, again, we can do this on the old school E6B. And we'll go back to our POH again and look at the climb chart, because again, it's going to tell us to 5,000 feet, we're going to use 2.2 gallons to climb to 5,000 feet from sea level. Well, we're not climbing from sea level. We're climbing from 1,000 feet, although that's about right. We're climbing about 5,000 feet. So it says we use 2.2 gallons to get to our top of climb, which I could buy that. Let's go ahead and calculate this though as if this whole leg was cruise, because we're not going to be climbing this entire first leg. So to do that on your manual E6B, you set the gallons per hour on the outer scale, and I like to be conservative. So if it says 7.7, I'm going to go 8 gallons per hour on the scale there, and then we read time on the inner scale, total gallons on the outer scale. Well, 12 and a half minutes on the inner scale is reading about 1.7 gallons of fuel, but they say our climb will take us 2.2. So for this first leg, I'm just going to say 3 gallons. The next leg is fully cruise the whole time, and it's 5 minutes and 40 seconds. So there's 5.5, 540. It's going to take about, let's just round up again, 0.8 gallons. And then the next one is 4 minutes and 40 seconds. It's going to take, let's say, 0.6 gallons. Then we have one that's 1320. Let's call it 13.5. It's 1.8 gallons. It's always better to err on the side of a bit conservative when you're working with fuel. Let's call this next one 1 gallon. We have a 5 minutes, 10 seconds. Let's call it 0.7 gallons. And the last leg, 945. Let's call it 1.3. So then we can add these numbers up. We've got 2 gallons, 3 gallons, 4.8. That's 5.4. That's 6.2. That's 9.2 gallons is what I say it's going to take. Let's see if ForeFlight agrees with our time and fuel. All right, I said 58 minutes and 15 seconds. ForeFlight says 59 minutes. So we're within 45 seconds on our time. It says 8.9 gallons. I said 9.2, so we're within 3/10. We are conservative on our plan. We're 3/10 of a gallon different than the 4-flight plan, and that's using pretty rough, loose winds. So I would say that's a pretty good fuel plan. We know we want to land with at least an hour of fuel at 8 gallons an hour. Let's round it up to 10. So if we need, if we want to land with 10 gallons and it's going to take 9.2 gallons, let's just say we have 19 gallons when we leave. So that's, we put here in the 19 gallons here at the top of our list. And we know we'll burn a gallon on the ground probably at startup, taxi run up. So we'll have 20 gallons of fuel in the airplane before we leave for this trip. And then we can just subtract each of these legs so we know how much fuel is remaining at each waypoint. In the event we have to divert or do something else along the way, it'll be a good idea to know how much fuel you have remaining at each point. So we'll put 16 gallons remaining. This is 15.2. This is, I hate subtracting these. This is, what is this? 14.6. Yep. This is 13. This is 12. Let's see, 13.8. 12.8. This is 11.8, this is 11.1, 10.1, this is 9.8 gallons remaining. So we'll have 9.8 gallons remaining upon arrival. All right, so that's effectively a cross-country flight plan. So now that we have this information, there's one final step. We've planned our cross-country, we've marked our waypoints, we've completed our nav log. We would fill in the winds, some of this other data we would complete before, make sure everything is filled out effectively, which this is not the actual paper I'm going to use on my cross-country or my check ride. This was for test purposes. The last piece of this puzzle is a weight and balance calculation for your trip. And so let me show you how you can do a weight and balance on paper. And I would encourage you, if you haven't done so, to make one of these for your airplane. This is a handy sheet that I made for 3852 Lima that has weight and balance information right off of the airplane's weight and balance sheet. So we know we're going to have, we know some variables here. I know that between myself and my DPE, excuse me, we're 435 pounds, pilot and front passenger. So you can fill in 435, and we're gonna multiply this because weight times arm equals moment. So we'll just use a standard calculator for this to go 435 times 36 to give us our moment for the pilot and front passenger of 15,660. Rear passengers, we're going to have 20 pounds, I just say, for each of our flight bags. So 20 times 70, which is the arm of the back seats, that's 1,400. Baggage, we have about 20 pounds of baggage, stuff stowed back there, oil, miscellaneous stuff. So we have 20 pounds, 95 arm, that's 1,900 moment. Well, now we need to calculate our zero fuel weight. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to add the weight column up to this point, 1383.1, which is the empty weight, 435 for passengers, 20 for the back seat, 20 for the baggage, 1858.1 is our zero fuel weight. We'll calculate the moment. That's a simple addition as well. We add up all of the moment fields, and we're going to determine the arm in a minute. So we add up these fields and we get a moment of 71,036.4. So if weight times arm is moment, then moment divided by weight will give us our arm. So we'll take 71,036.4 divided by 1858.1 to give us a moment of 38.23 at zero fuel. We said we'll load 20 gallons of fuel at 6 pounds per gallon for 120 pounds of fuel, times the fuel tank's arm of 48 gives us a moment of fuel for 5,760. So now we can figure out our ramp weight. we'll do our moment first since we already got 5,760 in the calculator, plus 71,036.4. Nope, 71,036.4 gives us a moment here of 76,796.4. And then we add our zero fuel weight, which was 1858.1, to our fuel that we just added of 120. That'll give us 1978.1. Then we can take 76,796.4, our moment of our ramp weight, divided by 1978.1. That will give us a arm of 38.82 on the ramp. We use 1 gallon of fuel, that's 6 pounds. Let's say on the ramp, that's 288. So now we subtract 1978 minus 6, that's 1972.1. We subtract the weight here, the moment here, 76,796.4 minus 288 to give us 76,508.4, divided by the weight, again, 1972.1, to give us a moment at takeoff of 38.8, let's call it. Fuel burn on the trip, what did we say? We're going to burn 9.8, no, we're going to have 9.8 left. We're leaving with 19. So we're going to burn 9.2 gallons. So we'll take 9.2 times 6. We're going to burn 55.2 gallons times an arm of 48. We're going to burn, our moment is 2649.6. So now to find our landing weight, we take 1972.1 minus 55.2 to get 1916.9, and we subtract 76,508.4 minus 2649.6 to give us a moment at landing of 73,858.8 divided by the weight 1916.9. We have an arm of 38.53 at landing. Okay, so what do we do with this information? Well, now we go back to our POH and we look at the weight and balance table. And once we find it, we decide whether at every point, the zero fuel weight point, the ramp weight, takeoff, and landing weight, we are within acceptable center of gravity for this airplane. So let's take the first one, zero fuel weight. Aircraft weight, 1858.1, so that's like right here. And then we come over to the aircraft moment, 71.0. So we scroll over, 71.0. We are in the utility category at zero fuel weight. Ramp weight, 1978, 38.8, 76.8. So let's scroll over for a moment, 76.8. That's right on the edge of utility and normal category, well within the center of gravity parameters for this airplane. Takeoff weight, 1972, 76.5. Again, right on the edge, utility and normal, well within the center of gravity. And finally, our landing weight, 1916 and 73.9, let's call it for the moment. So we come over 1916, 73.9, inside the utility category, well within the envelope of the center of gravity. You could check this also with ForeFlight. It has a weight and balance section where you can set up your airplane. You can put your loading for the flight in here. So we'll put 215, we'll put 220, we'll put 215, we'll put 220. Fuel tanks have 20 gallons. In the back seat we have 10 pounds on each side. And then we have, oh, this is the wrong airplane. Let's pick the right airplane first, huh? 10 pounds, and 20 pounds. And then let's work on our fuel. We're going to have 20 gallons when we start. We're going to burn, what did I say? $9.2 plus 1 on the ground, 10.2 gallons. Let's say we're going to burn, get 20 gallons, we're going to burn 10.2. And let's take a look. I miscalculated slightly, but we're close. They have our takeoff weight at 1978. I had it at 72. So we're 1 gallon off somewhere. I left 1 gallon in a weird place. Landing weight says 1916.9. That's exactly what we have. Moment is 38.5. As you can see from the chart, also well within our center of gravity. So now our flight is planned, and we'd be ready to go out and execute. That is my basic process for creating a VFR flight plan. Hope you enjoyed this. Stay tuned to the channel. More flight videos coming real soon. I have 2 more solo flights headed your way. There will not be a video for the check ride, but I am going to video on check ride day, morning of, and after the check ride. I'll have a video posted that same day for results of the check ride. So yeah, thanks for watching. I know this was long. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment or send me a message. And please check out the Patreon page at patreon.com/midlifepilot. And certainly appreciate your support there. Lots of great content for patrons only. And looking forward to talking to you more in the next week and getting ready for this check ride. Talk to you soon.